Welcome once again to the Believe in the Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Bo Smolka, joined by my co-host, former Ravens tight end Daniel Wilcox. And today we are going to look ahead to Monday Night Football as the Ravens go to New Orleans to face the New Orleans Saints, a Saints team that is 3-5 and has some urgency about them at this point in the season. The Ravens 5-3, working on their first 2-game winning streak of the year. And after this game, the Ravens have a bye week. So they will be able to rest up, and we'll talk about some of the banged up players, and the Ravens do have some banged up players to deal with. We will also talk about the trade deadline, and the Ravens were active again this year, and we will talk about that as well. First, I want to remind you that all Believe in the Ravens podcasts are sponsored by BetOnline, your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, teams matchups, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. As a continued source for all sports wagering information, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. It's always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports: Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, boxing, tennis, MMA, and even golf. Head to BetOnline and join and receive a 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Be sure to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your reward. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Daniel Wilcox, before we get into this Ravens-Saints Monday Night Football game, let's talk about the NFL trade deadline. It was an incredibly busy day for a lot of teams leading up to the trade deadline, and the Ravens were active again. For the third time in 4 years, General Manager Eric DeCosta swung a deadline deal, and the Ravens pick up Chicago Bears linebacker Roquan Smith, an inside linebacker. The Ravens give up inside linebacker A.J. Klein, and they give up 2 draft picks in the 2023 draft, a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick. And in return, they get Roquan Smith. Daniel Wilcox, when you heard the news of the trade, what were your thoughts, and how do you break down Roquan Smith's game?
I mean, I was really excited, Bo. As soon as I heard the news, I was like, "Oh yeah, we finna make a run." I was like, "The Ravens are serious this year." Eric DeCosta is masterminding everything right now. I just felt like it was such a good move by the Baltimore Ravens. I felt like our linebacking core wasn't our strength, and it's always been our strength. So I just feel like to try to get some of that back, you go get the leading tackler in the NFL by bringing in a Roquan Smith. He's a Georgia guy, so I'm kind of favored to that as well. I always feel like us Georgia boys can make a huge difference on any team you put us on. So to go get somebody with his type of leadership, his type of tenacity, and his speed. I mean, if I remember correctly, he was a 4.4, 4.5 guy coming out in the combine, and he ran sideline to sideline, and he was one of the fastest guys on that national championship team here in Georgia. And Georgia is one of those schools that's been, playing great for years, and they couldn't get over the hump. And he was a huge part of the reason why they got over the hump. So to see us go and get a guy like him, to bring him in and put him right next to an LSU guy, Patrick Queen, in the middle of the field, I think that's a pretty solid linebacker core. And I really feel this in my heart. I feel like he's the kind of guy that's going to play kind of like Ray Lewis, and he's going to be infectious. He's going to come in with a lot of energy, a lot of juice. Anytime you trade teams, you're definitely trying to fit in, but more than anything, you're trying to prove yourself. So I think he'll come in right away trying to prove his worth, trying to prove who he is, trying to, try to set that tone. And I think it'll make up for, a really good battle. LSU and Georgia, there's a lot of respect there between those two schools. So I think Patrick McQueen has played at a high level, but I think his level of play will actually elevate, with Roquan Smith right next to him. And Roquan is the kind of guy that has such an accelerated pace to the ball. He closes to the ball extremely well. He blitzes well. He had a bunch of sacks in Chicago. He's a script tackler as well, so he will cause fumbles for you. And he got pretty decent hands. So he could catch the ball fairly well, and he gets it in the hand. He's looking to score every single time. And to me, that's what you want out of your defensive players. He's a disruptor, and he's a guy that's going to disrupt some plays and some pass plays. He drops well in zones. He reads zones well, and he just does a phenomenal job. He reads routes well and stuff like that. So I think he'll bring a very high pace, fast pace, option for our defense. And I think Mike Macdonald is blessed to have him. I just think it's one more guy that the Ravens have helped him with to make him that much better. Jason Pierre-Paul was a great addition, and now you're bringing in Roquan Smith, and I think this is going to be one of the top defenses in the league this year by the time it's all said and done.
You mentioned Roquan Smith. He does lead the league in tackles. And so Roquan Smith is playing out his fifth-year option with the Chicago Bears. And the team and Smith had a falling out this summer. It was clear they were not on the same page in terms of an extension. And so Roquan Smith in August asked to be traded. So it's been rumored for a while that Roquan Smith was available. The thing is, as a fifth-year option guy, he was due to make about $9 million this year, roughly $5 million left to be paid out on. And the Ravens only had about $2.5 million in salary cap space. So right away, Roquan Smith struck me as an ideal kind of trade target for this team. If you look at their linebacker core, you mentioned Patrick Queen. Their other starter at inside linebacker has been Josh Bynes, who is a super guy, but at 33 years old, he's lost a step, and now he's hurt. And behind those two, there really isn't much. Malik Harrison has been playing on the outside more than on the inside. AJ Klein is there. He's been a role player. He was the one that was traded away just now. They've got Christian Welch and Delshon Phillips are inside linebackers, and yet the Ravens clearly don't trust them to play defense because they've hardly played a defensive snap all year. So the depth at inside linebacker was really, really lacking, as you said. But I'm looking at Roquan Smith's salary, and I'm saying, well, he'd be a perfect fit, but the Ravens can't afford him. And what happened here in this deal, according to ESPN, I haven't seen the numbers of the contract, but according to ESPN, the Bears have basically agreed to pay the majority of his contract. So the Ravens are only on the hook for about $600,000 of his contract this year, and that could have affected the trade compensation, and the Ravens have to give up a second-round pick. But Daniel Wilcox, you're getting an every down player to try to win now for less than $1 million a year, which in today's market, that appears to be pretty much of a steal, does it not?
Absolutely. I mean, I was an undrafted free agent, and I think way back when I played, my fourth year was a $500,000 deal. So I mean, to be able to get him basically at league minimum, that's. I mean, only Eric DeCosta and that mega mind of his, man, could do something else like that. I mean, just to think that you have to pay out, basically $5 million of his salary. The Bears are going to pay 4 point whatever, and then you only got to pay 575, 600,000, whatever it is. That's, man, to me, it's ingenious. You give up a second round pick for next year. Just like you were saying earlier, Bo, they're definitely going to try to find a way to get that second round pick back in some kind of, way or fashion, man. So I think it's a brainiac move, a super smart move. And Eric DeCosta used to always say this. He used to always say growth mindset. And he got to have a growth mindset. When you're looking for guys, you're looking for guys with growth mindsets. So you want guys to come in that want to have the mindset. They want to be the best, and they want to climb the ladder, and they want to continue to push themselves to grow, to get better and better and better. And I think Roquan Smith exemplifies that. He's a guy that's going to come in. He's already high up on that list, and I think he's going to play at a high level for a long time. He's a guy that could probably be a Raven for another 5 or 10 years.
Well, this is the question they will have after the season, right? Because he is in the last year of his deal. And the question is, can the Ravens extend him? He's going to be looking for top dollar. And the Ravens, of course, have the Lamar Jackson contract hovering over all. So I do think they will try to get an extension done with Roquan Smith. I think he's exactly the kind of player they want in the center of that defense long term. And then Patrick Queen is heading into his fifth year. They have to decide whether to exercise his option next year. But so that will be a question for another day. But they do get him for the rest of this year at a very affordable price. And if they were to lose him as a free agent at a contract that he's likely to draw, they would probably receive a third-round compensatory pick the following year. So they would get that in return. So I'm sure that also factored into Eric DeCosta's thinking. The thing is, I remember 2 years or 4 years ago now, when the Ravens traded for Lamar Jackson, they gave up a second-round pick in the following year's draft. And I remember Eric DeCosta that next year being very upset that they did not have a second round pick. And he knew they didn't. He's the one that made the trade, but he just said so many good players came off the board in that second round, and it was frustrating waiting to try to be able to pick in the third round. So I think somewhere down the road, Eric DeCosta will try to wheel and deal and get another second round pick, because I think he sees a lot of talented players there, and it's a big deal for them to give up a second rounder, having heard him say that last time. But again, you get this player of this caliber, You probably had to get that second round pick was probably folded into this idea that the Bears are going to pay the majority of his contract. But they are in kind of a win now mode. They look around and say, this division is here to win. We've got Lamar Jackson. We've got the players we like. It's a highly, highly winnable division, and we can make a run now. And I think the Roquan Smith deal does that. I mentioned before, Eric DeCosta, this is the third time in 4 years he's pushed a deal. He's been aggressive at the trade deadline. He's made no secret about the fact that he likes to make trades. They traded for Marcus Peters in 2019, just before the trade deadline. That worked out really well. 2020, they traded for Yannick Ngakoue. That one didn't quite work out as well, and then he left after that season. But Eric DeCosta does not hesitate to make a deal at this time of year. Now, you mentioned Roquan Smith comes right into this team. We fully expect him to play on Monday Night Football against the New Orleans Saints on just a few days of practice with his new team, but I expect we will see him out there. Also coming up on Monday night at New Orleans, the Ravens are expected to have Tyus Bowser back for the first time this year. Bowser, of course, tore his Achilles against Pittsburgh in the regular season finale last year, and it's been a slow grind back for him. Both he and rookie David Ojabo, their second-round draft pick, have been moved from injured reserve to the 53-man roster. Now, John Harbaugh said he believes Bowser's ready to go and will play on Monday. Ojabo, a rookie, has not practiced a whole lot yet in full team drills, probably won't play, but we do expect to see Tyus Bowser on Monday night. And Daniel Wilcox, how does Bowser's appearance, or return to the team, I should say, change what they want to do defensively?
I don't think it changes very much. I think it gives them a better pass rusher off the edge, which I think they really need, So I think you'll work him in slowly, just like you did the other guys, Dobbins and Stanley and Gus. Well, you'll come in and you'll ration his reps. He won't come in and play every single snap, but he'll definitely come in and play 10, 15, maybe 20 plays just to kind of get, back in the rhythm of things and see how it feels, him having to change direction just naturally and off reaction versus playing cuts or stopping goals and stuff like you do with drills. So I definitely think they'll work him in slowly, but having him back on the field, it's huge. A lot of guys really trust Bowser. Smart guy, super sharp, don't make mistakes, and he's consistent. And when you got consistent players like him, you miss them when they're absent and they're not on the field. Because you know where he's going to be. He's always going to be where he's supposed to be, and he's going to look next to you and make sure you're supposed to be where you're supposed to be as well, because he knows the defense that well. So having him back on the field is huge. He's a leader. He's a great film study guy, and he was able to communicate with the guys very effectively. So being able to get Bowser back is huge for this defense, and it's huge for Mike Macdonald as well. So you get another leader back on the field, but not just a leader, but a playmaker. And a guy that could actually disrupt the pass and give the quarterback a bad day. Any day, any given Sunday, so having Bowser back would be huge. Can't wait to hear 100% and he's ready to go every single snap. They had to take some of those reps off Pierre Paul and the rest of those guys, Houston too as well.
No, look at Justin Houston. They've done that. They've rationed Justin Houston more lately than they did early in the season, and he's come back with a vengeance. The last 2 games, Justin Houston has had back-to-back sacks on back-to-back plays in both of the last 2 games. So, and he's doing it playing 15 to 20 snaps a game, which is what they want from him. If Justin Houston's playing more, if he's playing too much, he's going to wear down at his age, and he missed those games earlier with a groin injury. So he is back as well. Now, players that won't be back this week. Rashad Bateman, the Ravens wide receiver, is dealing with that foot injury, and John Harbaugh said he is it was day-to-day, then he missed a couple games. He came back and played at Tampa Bay, but he did something to it. And after the game, John Harbaugh described it just as a tweak. But earlier this week, he said, no, actually, it's a little more than that, and he is going to miss some time.
It's probably plantar fasciitis or something like that.
So, he's out for probably at least 2 or 3 weeks, and it's conceivable he would go to injured reserve, and then he would be out 4 weeks. But so they are going to be without Rashad Bateman. So here comes Devin Duvernay again. Is going to have to step up. James Prochet. The Ravens did not trade for a wide receiver, which a lot of people were hoping they would do, but it's going to be in the hands of Duvernay, Demarcus Robinson, James Prochet, Tylan Wallace, and guys like Isaiah Likely, who emerged as the rookie tight end did at Tampa Bay. So you can look at this Monday night. Bateman is out. Mark Andrews, remember the Ravens' leading receiver or tight end, top target for Lamar Jackson. He left the game at Tampa Bay with a shoulder injury. John Harbaugh downplayed the seriousness of it, but he may or may not be available against New Orleans. And Gus Edwards got hurt against Tampa Bay with a hamstring injury that John Harbaugh also described as mild. But again, I'm not sure anything can be viewed as mild when you're coming off a year where you tore your ACL and missed a whole year. So Gus Edwards and Andrews are both highly questionable for this week. And if they're both out, it becomes a situation where the Ravens are going to be challenged offensively. Having said that, all three of those guys left the game against Tampa Bay, and the Ravens ran wild over Tampa Bay anyway in the second half of that game. So I think they have figured out some things they want to do offensively rather. And that's going to be interesting to monitor, this health of Andrews and Gus Edwards, especially in the days leading up to this game at New Orleans. We already know Rashad Bateman will be out, but there will be some, we'll have to see the status of Andrews and Edwards going forward. All right, now the New Orleans Saints, 3-5. The Ravens have to go to New Orleans. It is a tough, tough place to play. And it's an offense that in New Orleans is struggling in a way because Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, both hurt. But they've got Andy Dalton, our old friend Andy Dalton. But Ravens have seen a lot of him over the years. He is expected to be at quarterback. They've got Alvin Kamara, good, dangerous running back, and Taysom Hill, who kind of does everything for them. Let me ask you, Daniel Wilcox, Taysom Hill, when you watch him, what do you think of him? How do you defend him? And do you ever wish you had a role like him where you could throw passes, run a whole bunch of times?
I definitely want to run the ball a lot. I would have loved the kid in the backfield actually get a handoff instead of having to block for a back that's bigger than me, like Jamal Lewis. But I mean, Taysom Hill, I think he's got a very interesting role. He came in as a quarterback, and now he's listed as a tight end, H-back type guy. And then he comes in and does some phenomenal things, man. He's a talented guy and very athletic. And it's really interesting to see how they use him, week in and week out. He makes some really big plays for the Saints. I know we'll be ready for it. It's not like he's going to come in the game. We don't know Taysom Hill is in the game. All right, 7's in the game. Make sure you send such and such in. They'll have a guy just for Taysom Hill. If I know the Ravens correctly,
who would that be? Who's ideal to defend him?
To me, if it was me, I think I would put 14 on him, Hamilton. You got a new guy. He's young. He's fresh. He could run. He could hit. He's physical. He's big. He's athletic. He got great hands. He could cover. He could do a little bit of everything. So to me, I think I would put Hamilton on him and go into a special package or something where I bring him down into the box. I think he would be the guy. But I definitely think you don't let him go crazy on you with this wildcat stuff they're doing, and you want to definitely disrupt his timing and disrupt the things that he's doing at the QB spot when he comes in the game.
And what about Alvin Kamara, another one who's really tough against the Raiders? They're coming off a game where they shut out the Las Vegas Raiders. And Alvin Kamara had 3 touchdowns in this game, 1 rushing and 2 receiving. And historically, the Ravens have struggled, and this is where Roquan Smith will be interesting to see. The Ravens have struggled with receiving running backs a lot of times.
Right.
So what's the strategy defending a good receiving running back?
Just protect the flats. Most running back plays are designed to get him outside. So he'll be a swing route or flat route to the flats or a check down where he can, he give you a 2-way option and run away. But either way, he's running towards the sideline, left or right. So I just think just protecting the flats, keeping an eye on him. Don't forget that he's out there. Kamara's a guy that you can't forget about. He's there. Mark Andrews on their team. You ask me. So he's a guy that you got to always know where he's at all times. He could really, really, really hurt you. He's another Georgia guy, grew up here in Atlanta, Georgia, and he's a super shifty, fast, speedy guy that could run. He's physical. He plays well. He's twitchy. He can make you miss, and he can put the shoulder down and run through you too as well, break arm tackles. So, you got to hit him. You got to hit him quite a bit. I remember a game we played Pittsburgh, and they had a young guy that was coming up, and he was talking smack. He hadn't really played us like that before. And his name was, I think, Rashad Mendenhall or something like that, Mendenhall. And he was talking smack before the game, the week leading up to that game. And, we took it pretty personal, and Ray Lewis, if I remember correctly, broke his collarbone that game. He hit him so freaking hard. And I was like, oh, he knew he was hurt, and the kid went out the game and never heard him talk smack again, So, Alvin's not one of those guys. He's just a playmaker. He's just a good old fashioned playmaker, put the ball in his hands. He's the kid that was on Friday Night Lights named Booby. You want to win, put Booby in and let Booby spin. He's that guy. So he'll go out there and just make plays for you, man. So we got to know who he is and where he is at all time. Know where number 41 lines up, and then we got to give him the respect that he deserves. You bring guys in and hit him. You want to make him pick himself up off the ground as many times as he possibly can. And when he gets on the pile, just kind of pile on top of him a little bit, give him a little bit of that good old South, that good old Raven love, Charm City love. You know what I mean?
A little bit of the business.
A little bit of the business.
Well, look, the Saints are coming off a game where they shut out the Raiders, and they haven't had Marshawn Lattimore, a really good cornerback. But I think against this Ravens team, especially without Rashad Bateman, the bigger issue is going to be can the Saints stop the Ravens' run game? The Saints' run defense is middle of the pack. They rank about 14th overall. But with no Rashad Bateman, I expect this Ravens team to try to anchor this game on the ground again, as they did. Remember, in the Tampa Bay game, they came out throwing against a depleted Bucs secondary, and it didn't really go well in that first half. They never really got in rhythm. Second half, they came out on a run-first heavy offense, which they want to be, and they just ran the ball down the Buccaneers' throat. And I think the Ravens' game plan should be to try to establish that run and win with the run. Now, the Gus Edwards injury looms here because he's a big part of, in the last 2 games he came back, he's a big part of their run game success in the past 2 years, or past 2 weeks rather. So the Saints do present some problems, and they're home. And I don't know, do you think there's something to this idea that there's a sense of urgency, that they're the more desperate team at 3, and if they lose, they're 3-6 in a division that's very winnable, but 3-6 is still 3-6. So can that sense of urgency tilt the scales in their favor? Do we make too much of that?
No, I don't think you make enough of it. I think you're 100% correct. I mean, everybody sit down and look at the numbers, just like fans look at numbers, players look at it, coaches look at it, staff members look at it. Nobody wants to be 3-5. Nobody wants to be 3-6. They're looking for a win every single week. They're looking into this thing just as hard as we are, and they're thinking just like, man, we got to win this game. We know it's a tough game. This is a game everybody probably expecting us to lose. We're the underdogs at home in our own dome down here in New Orleans. So, I know how they feel. I don't even think. I know exactly how they feel as players. They're in the locker room every single day. Bro, we got Lamar Jackson coming here this week, and it's heavy. It's weighing heavy on your shoulders. We got it. We can't take this team lightly. It's the Baltimore Ravens. We know how serious their defense have always been. We know they're not playing well on defense. We got to take advantage of them right now. We got to hit them where it hurts. We got to figure out a way to slow Lamar down. Mark Andrews ain't playing, thank God. These are conversations that are happening right now in their locker room. But the new kid likely is, we got to keep our eye on him. We got to make sure we hit that kid and, kind of knock him off his rocker a little bit. And we got to be physical. The Saints offense has to be physical. If they're not physical against the Ravens defense, it's going to be a long night for them. And I think they know that already, so they're just going to do everything they can to try to out physical the Ravens defense. They know we just picked up Roquan Smith. You can look at the depth chart. His name is already penciled in as a starter. So, you got to see the kid. It's just one of those things, man. You look at the Ravens defense and they look really good on paper, really, really good, from Calais Campbell, to Queen and Roquan, to the secondary, Kyle Hamilton, wish Marcus Williams wasn't hurt. I know he would really be up for this game, and then
yes,
you look at
I'm sure.
Yeah. You look at the 2 corners we have. I mean, they nothing shorter than, extraordinary, so, they know they got to be physical this week. It's going to be very interesting to see how the Saints come in and you can't come in and try to finesse this defense. You got to come in and try to out physical them, and you got to get them on their heels. You got to make them say, oh my God, we playing Pittsburgh? Who the heck are we playing? They got to look at you differently. They got to respect you. You got to make the Ravens defense respect you. And I think the Ravens defense is going to continuously get better as the weeks go on. Mike Macdonald's going to get more and more comfortable with doing what he's doing. I think the guys are going to get more comfortable with this new scheme that he's put in, and they're going to get better and better every single week.
They've gotten better. I think there's no question about it. I think I've seen over the past month, they have gotten better. And I know they had the meltdowns against Miami, and they had the meltdown against Buffalo. And they had the late fold against the Giants. It was also created by the offensive turnover. But that defense, I would say, over the past month has gotten significantly better. And of course, it gets better with Roquan Smith. All right, before we do predictions, after this game, the Ravens have a bye. They get they've had this mini bye after the Thursday night game. Now they play on Monday night, and then they have a bye, and they don't play again until November the 20th. Do you like the idea of the bye coming at this almost exact midpoint of the season? Do you wish it came earlier? Do you wish it came later?
I love it. I think you need a break midway through this thing always. I hate when it comes too early because you feel like it's not a real bye. It feel like you're getting a break. You're getting a break too early, and most people are beat up. I love the fact that we're getting healthy right now. We're starting to actually look like a fairly healthy team, even though we get guys back and they continue to kind of go back on IR. I love that. I feel like we're getting better week in, week out with the people that are coming back off the injured reserve or off the PUP list or that's coming back that's been hurt for a couple of weeks. So the bye, I think, couldn't come at a better time for the Ravens. They get a break to sit back and, kind of smell the roses a little bit, kind of reflect on what they did the first half of the season, smack themselves again for those 3 losses that they have because they could have won all 3, and then say, all right, this is how we're going to look at the second half of the season. We're going to start over. We 0-0. We're going to, we're going to go 1-0 every game, every week, and then see what happens, And I think that's the only way to look at it when you play this game. 1-0 every week. Who cares about what you did last week? This week is the first game of the year. 1-0. Let's get started. How we gonna play the next game and try to put our best foot out there. The Baltimore Ravens has always been a great franchise, great organization. It's a first-class organization. Thank you, Steve Bisciotti. Appreciate you guys up top. And it starts with the owners. The owner is a winner. He's a first-class type of guy. The way he treats you, the way he takes care of you, the way he understands, the way he communicates with you is first class. I don't know a lot of owners that sit down and just talk to their players about life, about finances, about success, about football, about family, and I think that's important to have, so it starts with Eric, not Eric DeCosta, but it starts with Steve Bisciotti and it kind of trickles down to everyone else. And I love that, man. And when you go around the Ravens franchise, there's people there that's been working there for 30, 40, 50 years. Mm-hmm. And that says a lot about the franchise that you play at as a player. You can respect that. You walk in the front door, Baker Copperman is still the ticket guy. Love Baker. So it's like he's still the ticket guy. 20 years later, mm-hmm. he's still the ticket guy at the Baltimore Ravens. That says a lot about the type of franchise you have because people don't want to leave. They love working there. And I love that, man. I really do. I love it. And I think once the Ravens take this bye week, they sit back, they smell, they take a deep breath, and they kind of smell where they are right now. I think they'll be happy where they're at, but I think they'll be still pissed off about those 3 they gave away because they basically just gave 3 games away.
Well, they could have won every single one of them. So they will go into this bye at either 6-3 with a 3-game winning streak or mm-hmm. 5-4, and they would still be in first place in the division after Cincinnati got routed by the Cleveland Browns last week. And so that pushed them down, and the Ravens. So they're essentially guaranteed to still be in first place when they get to their bye one way or the other. And then, as you said, they will have a chance to let players like Gus Edwards, Mark Andrews, and everyone, these players will always tell you, and that players always say, well, you're never 100%. I mean, once training camp starts, you're never 100%.
You're not.
But they get the bye week for the guys that are more seriously injured, like Gus Edwards and Mark Andrews and some other guys, to really get themselves healed up. That will be the bye week after this. But all right, here we go. Monday Night Football at New Orleans. We need predictions. Daniel Wilcox, Ravens, Saints. What's your final score?
All right, I'm going to stick with my 35 for Baltimore, man. I just really feel like the Ravens are going to put up 35 this week. And I know that probably is going to piss some Saint fans off, but who cares? All right, 35 points by the Baltimore Ravens. And since they got Will Lutz was one of my guys at Georgia State. I'm going to give them 17. Will Lutz going to kick that 17th point for him. So 35-17 Baltimore.
So Will Lutz is a great story, having a super career with the New Orleans Saints. And this was a guy, Will Lutz, I'm glad you brought him up. He was here in training camp with the Ravens as an undrafted rookie, learning from Justin Tucker. And we've often thought, well, if you're going to be an undrafted rookie kicker, why would you come to Baltimore where they already have Justin Tucker? But what happens is these guys come and they spend the summer playing with Justin Tucker and learning from Justin Tucker. And Will Lutz is a guy that at the end of that summer, as he fully expected would happen, he got cut by the Ravens, he gets assigned by the New Orleans Saints, and he has been a terrific kicker for them. And so Will Lutz was here with that summer for the Ravens, and he's had a super career for the New Orleans Saints. And I know when Justin Tucker sees Will Lutz do well, he's always very happy for him. I don't think he'll be happy it's a game-winning field goal this weekend, but Will Lutz has done very well for himself in New Orleans after his first rookie summer with the Baltimore Ravens. I've gone back and forth. I don't think this is going to be an easy game. And there were times I was picking the Saints to win it. I just think it's a road game. I think the Ravens are going to be cautious with their injuries. We may not see Mark Andrews. I don't think we'll see Gus Edwards. So then can Kenyon Drake and Mike Davis and Justice Hill do what they need to do in the running game? They weren't really doing it early in the year, but I feel like they're playing with a little more confidence. And I think the defense is playing a lot better than it was earlier in the season. And I think the injuries to Michael Thomas and to Jarvis Landry are significant. So I'm going to pick the Ravens to win 24-20. I think it's going to be close, and it's not easy to win at New Orleans on Monday Night Football. It will be loud, but I'm going Ravens 24 and the Saints 20.
Yeah, we're 5-2 against the Saints now. Don't get that twisted. We're 5-2 versus the Saints, and I think that we got a really good chance. We play well on prime time Monday night. So I really believe we're going to hang 35. Lamar, if you're listening to this, give me 35 this week, brother. I know you got it in you.
Well, he will probably, if he doesn't have Mark Andrews, expect a big game from Isaiah Likely again. He really he had his coming out party at Tampa Bay, and he showed what he can do, and that's what we saw from Likely all summer. So some of those guys will be emerging if Mark Andrews doesn't play. Well, that will be the Ravens and the Saints on Monday Night Football. And then the Ravens have their bye week, as I said, and they will get some time to recharge. And as you said, Daniel Wilcox, kind of take a deep breath and look around, see where they are, and get away from football. I mean, one thing they've done with this bye week now is the league has mandated the players are off. They basically get away from the place for 4 days. The Ravens cannot have practices or anything. So they get a long weekend no matter what. They will recharge. They'll go home to their families. They'll, do whatever they want for 4 days and then come back and be ready to go for a stretch of the schedule that is pretty forgiving, beginning with a home game against Carolina on November the 20th. We will be back before that Carolina game to preview that one and get a sense of where the Ravens go over the second half of the season after this one between the Ravens and the Saints. For Ravens tight end Daniel Wilcox, this is Bo Smolka on the Believe in the Ravens podcast presented by BetOnline.